It's a perfect and beautiful morning. Welcome to your beautiful also morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and of course I'm here with Jeffrey. Jeffrey, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very well. It's Friday. It's the last for the week. It's been a very eventful week. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. As always, we're broadcasting live from Lagos, the nation's commercial nerve center, and Channels Television's global headquarters. And our job, as always, helping you make sense of all the happenings in the country, from the big stories to not too big stories, just helping you binge through all of them so you can have a robust perspective as to all of the conversations that is right there in the public space. Bukola, what are we tracking?
Yes, indeed. Of course, we're starting off this morning with the all-important visit by the Director General of the World Trade Organization to Mr. President, of course, for a business interest. We saw her flanked yesterday by the Minister of Trade and Investment. They're here particularly, to promote the Export Business Fund for Women. But she also took time to interact with gentlemen of the press, and she commended the policies of the federal government under President Bola Tinubu, particularly for stabilizing the economy. But Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, Nigeria's former Minister of Finance, by the way, also took time to recommend that there must be social safety nets to cushion the impact of the harsh economic policies of the government. Do we have that soundbite now? Let's take a listen to Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, and then we'll come back.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Let's have some words with you.
Yes.
You're home?
We came to brief Mr. President about this fund, which we launched. The Minister of Trade, Industry, Trade, and I was looking. It has been shepherding this effort in Nigeria, along with the Nigeria Export Promotion Council. Nigeria competed and won. One of 4 countries that won globally to be part of this new initiative. We had 67,000 Nigerian women who applied for this, and 146. Can you imagine? 67,000, 146 won, and they are going to have money disbursed directly to them. 16 of them won what we call the booster track. Those who already have businesses, but their businesses will be scaled up. They will receive technical and business support for 18 months from the WTO and the ITC, and working with the ministry. So we will all work together to make sure that their businesses expand, they employ more people, they put money in their households' pocket and in the nation's pocket. We think that the president and his team, and we just exchanged with him, have worked hard to stabilize the economy. And you cannot really improve an economy unless it's stable. So he has to be given the credit for the stability of the economy. So the reforms have been in the right direction. What is needed next is growth. We now need to grow the economy, and we need to put in social safety nets so that people who are feeling the pinch of the reforms can also have some support to be able to weather the hardship. So that's the next step. How do we build social safety net to help Nigerians cushion the hardship they're feeling? And then how do we grow the economy so we can create more jobs and put more money in people's pockets? These are issues that we discussed with Mr. President.
There you have it. The former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and of course, Director General of the World Trade Organization. First of all, we must commend the Ministry of Trade and Industry for that particular, Export Business Fund for Women, under which, some women have now received funds to facilitate their businesses. Of course, the conversations prior to this time have been about concerns that female-owned businesses are not always, prioritized when it comes to securing contracts, in contract bidding processes, either at the state level or even at the federal government level, with Bureau for Public Enterprises in the procurement processes. So the creation of this platform sort of helps women-owned businesses achieve, if you like, parity, maybe not at the level or the scale that is desired, but at least some female-owned businesses have been giving a boost in order to survive. On the concern about social safety nets, there's so many levels to the conversation. Some would say, give a man the nets to catch the fish rather than the fish. We could also talk about the accountability issues, in the ministry prior to this time. But we've interacted with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, who's, by the way now, National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, and he's spoken about the initiatives under the ministry that are being carried out that are also designed to empower skill acquisition training programs. But are we seeing the visible results, Jeffrey?
At the end of the day, she's made very vital points. The reason why that's going to be a problem is because we have a data problem in Nigeria. We don't even know how many we are as a country. The last time we did a census was 2006. And we're hoping to have a census. So how do you plan a country like that, as big as ours, and you don't have some level of accurate data? We're just running data by assumption. And that is the beginning of every planning. So we need to know just how many we are. Are we 220? Are we 230? Are we 200 million in terms of the number of people we have as a country? So we just have estimates based on projections and growth, birth rate, and all of that. So census will be quite critical. And when we come to census, it's also a political issue as to the shenanigans that happens within census. So critically, she's talked about the reforms being in the right direction. We've seen stability, especially in the FX market, although we know that even the CBN governor said, look, Nigeria's Naira is undervalued, but that's where we are, 1,500 plus. We've seen that stability because of the harmonization they did. So we must commend the central bank for doing all of that, but that has affected a lot of things. What they call the J-curve theory. That is why we see our export bigger than our import, not necessarily because of production and productivity, but we've also seen some increase, let me not say significant, some level of increase in our oil production. We used to over around 1.4, just crude oil, not condensate now. I think now we're doing about 1.5 and slightly over that. I think we did 1.6 and all of that. Because for you to grow, for you to do productive, there are levers it has to sit on. You have to sit on the lever of infrastructure. And the leader of that lever is power. How much have we done in terms of power? You have to look at skill, the capacity of the people, human capital development, scalability. That's what China has as an advantage. And now the new age of technology. Look at all of these potpourris, because the argument has always been whether subsidy is good or bad. It's not a yes or no question. Even China, the reason why China is having a problem with America, because China subsidizes some level of production to keep their business competitive as much as possible. So it's whether or not we have the money to sustain the subsidy. So people will vilify Nigerians and Nigeria for what do you call it now? Paying subsidy. I think they are not being fair to say, and I hate that thing. You want to gaslight us like, oh, we're eating free meals and all that. Nothing is wrong with subsidy if you can sustain it. So the argument should be we couldn't sustain the subsidy because of X, Y, Z. Because when they came in, the wage bill was maybe over 21 trillion or more, and most of them were subsidy, electricity, PMS, backing of FX that's supporting and defending the Naira and all of that. So if you make the argument that, look, by the way we're to tank, that's a good argument. So, but insulting people or insulting Nigerians to the effect that, look, subsidy, we're eating free meals, I think it's very insulting. If we could sustain it, there's nothing wrong with it. If we could even subsidize production, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just to look at the uniqueness of your economy and what works for you and what is sustainable in the long run. That is why she's saying she knows that the policy of government will bring a lot of shock. People will die, businesses will fail, and all of that. So we didn't prepare for all of that. It's now the subsidy has been removed, and we're now trying to manage the shock. But the resilience of Nigeria is also one of the things that has kept this, not because of too much fantastic policy. If you make it even worse, Nigerians will survive, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know what to say.
Well, as far as subsidy is concerned, Jeffrey, we could go on and on about the implications of the removal of subsidy itself. You said the argument is whether or not we're able to sustain it. We could talk about the lack of prosecution of those who have been complicit in the, subsidy regime, for which everybody, there's been a healthy consensus that it was a scam. There are also concerns about accountability, even after the, the removal of fuel subsidy, where we have seen increased allocation to the subnationals. So those are some of the concerns. But it's going to be another program entirely that will be dedicated to the conversation of subsidy. But let's go to yet another very important subject that we're tracking for you this morning. And the Minister of the Interior has been speaking on the state of correctional services, and he's spoken about 67% of prison inmates awaiting trial. A whopping 67%. And of course, he also spoke to the fact that under this administration, jailbreaks have been fewer. Let's listen to the minister and then we'll return.
All right, I understand he didn't make so much comment. He just, I think he spoke yesterday, yes, on our political program, so we couldn't get that. But basically, he's been talking about this awaiting trial. Bukola, I don't know the last time, or have you ever visited a prison? Or the last time you went to prison? It's really prison. This fancy name of correctional center is just euphemic. I don't know, maybe not for all, but the state of our prisons is just a sorry state. So to find people awaiting trial, is just imagine you were accused of whatever, the court remanded you, and people await trial. So let's say that again. That means you're waiting for a date in court. People spend years, months, waiting just to be heard by the judge, their own side of the story as against people who brought them to court. I think that in itself, Bukola, is gross injustice, is wickedness of the highest order. But that is a systemic problem. It's not just throwing these numbers at us. I have commended that minister because I think he's done a great work, especially with the passports and all of that. Where he needs to now channel his energy to is issues around prison and border. Those two big issues is the next line of action for him. He should channel that energy, that young energy has, to the issues of prison. If there has to be a special session, I don't know how the judiciary works when it comes to things like this, Bukola. Just imagine a brother, a friend, or yourself, or whatever, find yourself in prison just waiting endlessly because politicians will just walk up to court, get dates for their hearing, and get their judgment. The way they have access to the court, it looks like Nigerian courts are now for the political class. But that is not the truth. But in reality, that is what it feels like. How do you wait 67? That means out of 100%, 67% are waiting trial. That should alarm. It should generate an SOS. This is what you should bring in, is it state of emergency now? You know, that's a popular word. What are the crimes these people are committing? If they are menial crimes, just do what you can as a government and get them out of that place. And then the ones that have committed serious crime, let them get to court. If there has to be a special session, we can look at them, young people, young boys, young girls, languishing in jail. Look at them. I don't know how many were packed into that vehicle. The state of that, if any of them has a health problem, you're as good as gone. It's not the prison that will keep, look at that. I don't know which crime these ones committed, but they also have a right to human dignity. They have a right to life until pronouncement by a court. So our argument here is that why should 67% of inmates in Nigeria be awaiting trial? Some have never had one day in court besides the day the judge made the statements. You remember the guy we spoke to? That one, he just disappeared. And they found him, is it 14 years later? Oh, I can't remember.
I think nearly 2 decades later, because he was a teenager when he was taken away from his home, and from there he disappeared. And now he's about 34, 36 or so.
And he's totally disoriented right now.
His life is gone. You know, so Jeffrey, you hit the nail on the head when you referred to how the justice system is responsible for this. Let's call a spade what it is. Apparently, the justice system may just be for the elite class when, you know, with ease, the elite class are able to secure dates for their hearing and get accelerated hearing and trial for some of their cases. If 67% of prison inmates are awaiting trial, then what is left of those who have actually been tried, convicted, and prosecuted? You know, and it is also, you know, in this country, perhaps not under this legislative watch, perhaps maybe the 9th Assembly, that we heard that, you know, what is allocated as feeding allowance for guard dogs, you know, is more than what is allocated as feeding per head for prison inmates. And the question, or the important part of the argument, is whether or not jail breaks have reduced under this administration. But it is about whether or not what is available to the Ministry of Interior is judiciously used, giving adequate attention to infrastructure, you know, renewal in the prison. Look at the state of the prison. The other day, the governor of Nasarawa State visited the prison service, and some of the images came through. We saw inmates jam-packed in a small enclosed place as though they were fish in a sardine box. And that's heartbreaking. That's dehumanizing. That's another system that doesn't correct. That's evidence of a system that doesn't correct, but a system that takes away the life of an individual. So where is the correction in the correctional service? So these are the questions that we should be asking. Are these inmates put through productive activity such that their lives are reformed? And there are bigger implications of the continuing neglect of the prison service. You know, with jailbreaks, we had a conversation with Dr. Osaje the other day, and he spoke about, he referred to a case where out there an individual was murdered by someone who escaped, you know, from the correctional service. So there is absolutely no correction from evidence that is abounding that there's any correction going on in the correctional service. And again, Jeffrey, this supports the conversation about the need to remove, you know, prison service from the jurisdiction of the exclusive list to the residual list, such that the states can provide intervention. Speaking of which, the Nasarawa State governor said the other day that he has ordered that mattresses be purchased for the prison. So let's not lose our humanity here for the prison inmates.
You have said a lot, and we've said a lot. As a matter of fact, this is why it's a bad idea not to have influence and to be poor. All this grammar we're speaking, it has nothing to do with the haves. But let's tell you what we're doing today on the program. We'll start with the issue around what played out in Port Harcourt at a religious center where we saw little children, underage, minors, well, being dehumanized in that sense, in the name of a spiritual exercise. There's a twist to that story. The pastor was arrested. Guess what? The parents showed up at the police station singing and dancing in solidarity with their pastor. So this is a state against religion. I don't know what to call this, but we'll explore that conversation right on the program.
And we're huge on, you know, response or attention being paid to children, wards, and youths on the program today. What is happening in our educational institutions? Is it, you know, what do we call it now? Signing out ceremonies that are unwholesome, or a signal, signs of a broken culture where you have excessive, you know, display of wealth in prom parties for graduating students. So is this a new generation culture, and is it a culture shock for the millennials and the baby boomers who didn't experience this or weren't given to such tendencies while they were in the higher institutions and secondary schools. So we're big on that conversation today, and we have a panel that will be speaking to these matters.
We're going to be big on it, what exactly is going on with students and spending money when they haven't even graduated. But away from that, we will move on to the issues around security in the Southeast region. The Amnesty International has released specific numbers of killings by state and non-state actors. And that has also generated conversation within the polity. We'll break it down right here with Amnesty International, asking all the right questions as far as that region and the issue of killings are concerned. Okay, let's get to what the dailies are saying. I will be joined by our guest who is already seated in our Abuja studio. Igor Akarega is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. He will be helping us to look at the dailies in just a moment. Ms. Akarega will come to you in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, let's get started with the Nigerian News Direct. Tinubu deserves credit for economic reforms. That's according to the DG of the World Trade Organization and former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Flags internet gap as threat to Nigeria's share in the 4.25 trillion naira digital trade. Ms. Akaraga, she's made comments around policies in the right direction. The government has said necessary pain for future gain, but she's also highlighted the gaps and said something has to be done so that the poor will be allowed to breathe. What do you make of it?
Well, I followed what happened yesterday when Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala visited the presidential villa, specifically visiting Mr. President. Well, it's a big one for the administration to have the World Trade, that is the chief of the World Trade Organization. Incidentally, she's a Nigerian, and we all know she's economically cerebral. She was the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy under former President Goodluck Jonathan, and we saw what happened, really. The economy stabilized massively, and I think also under former President Olusegun Obasanjo, when Nigeria was able to pay off all her debts. So coming at this time that there's a whole lot of conversation about the performance of the economy under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think most Nigerians, the debate is still on, really. It's a running story as I will look at it, but she hit the nail on the head, basically, when, one, she gave kudos to the administration for stabilizing the value of the naira against the dollar, and of course also taking some very bold policies, whether in terms of taking out the subsidy and then the effect that it is having. And then, of course, she also reminded the administration about the need, to provide necessary safety nets, necessary social security safety net in terms of taking more Nigerians out of poverty. I think that is the crux of the economy debate. But overall, the macroeconomic policies of the President Bola Tinubu appears to be gaining some traction. For now, it has not trickled down, it has not percolated down to majority of Nigerians. That is where the problem is. I think that is what Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is actually talking about. She gave kudos to the administration that the policies are on the right track, but that the policy now at this point needs to veer towards the masses to take them out of the current economic crunch. Don't forget that millions of Nigerians are multidimensionally very poor, according to UN figures, whether it is World Bank or the IMF, poverty ravaging most Nigerians. And that is where many Nigerians also disagree with this administration, that the policies may be working for the elites, but for the common people, is it really working? You look at food prices, yes, that is coming down, because at some point, it was almost unbearable. It was hitting hard on many homes in Nigeria, but the food prices are coming down. The critical issues that are actually affecting Nigeria economically is the price of fuel and electricity. That one is price of fuel, price of electricity, and insecurity. People are not able to go to their farms. Once the government is able to look at these three issues, then I think the government will be moving in the right direction.
So let's go to the Guardian newspaper, which takes a detour from the visit of the Director General yesterday and focuses on politics ahead of Saturday's by-election. Parties jostle for 16 seats as crucial by-elections set stage for 2027. And we'll see the actors there, from the political parties to the electoral umpire itself. So, Mr. Akiria, I wonder what your projections are, because these are crucial elections, not just for projections about the possibility of the ruling party tilting the balance in party formation in the upper chamber, but also about this being a test for the 2027 elections. What do you see happening after Saturday and its implications?
Well, apparently that, for me, that will look like a referendum. The Saturday elections will look like a referendum to me, whether Nigerians still believe in the ruling party or not. That of Anambra State is crucial, for the Senate position. When the election comes, we'll wait and see the outcome. But basically, I think the ruling party will be a bit jittery at this point, because most Nigerians are questioning their policies. As I mentioned earlier, policies around the economic issues, around poverty, around insecurity. There's insecurity across regions in the country, whether it is northwest, northeast, north central, southeast. The only two regions that having some semblance of peace is the south-south, some parts of the south-south, and of course the southwest, where you have the Amotekun, that has been able to stabilize security in the southwest. So these are the issues that I'm sure that will come to play. Again, many Nigerians do not really vote according to issues. They vote more on sentiments about who is running the political parties, and sometimes even monetary influences on election day. The outcome of the Saturday election is clearly going to be a pointer to the way that the 2027 general elections will run. But I also see the ruling party gaining some traction here. Because if you look at the other party, whether it is Labour Party, the ADC is here to take off. The PDP is there. The PDP has been in disarray for a while. They are just rebuilding. So the Labour Party and the PDP that is supposed to put on some challenge, I doubt if they are really ready for the election. So that gives some advantage to the ruling party. But we'll see how it goes.
Quite an interesting perspective. But just to stay on that for just a moment, will this election on Saturday, which is tomorrow, be a fair test of each party's strength in that regard, given what is playing out? Isn't it predictable what will happen? So look at what the ADC is dealing with, which is a new baby in the room. The PDP just kind of got his act in order, but they are not out of the waters. We can tell everybody that for free, because we still have members that are armed force politicians who are playing two games. Some are supporting PDP. They are members of PDP, but they are supporting APC. They are members of PDP, they are supporting ADC. Labour Party is divided also in that direction. There's, I don't even know, maybe even the worst, because there's a caretaker committee, there is a Buri-led committee, led leadership. So isn't this as predictable as possible? Let's look at the two senatorial districts, Anambra South, God rest his soul, Ifeanyi Uba's seats that will be contested for. Abga leads that party, that state. APC occupied that seat last because he left YPP for that seat. So YPP is trying to have his best to fight to get back his seat from their member who defected. Let's go to Edo Central, which is where the governor resigned from to become governor. The PDP in Edo State, are they formidable enough? Because even among the PDP in Edo State, there's the amorphous relationship. Danobi is a friend to Nyesom Wike, who is a supporter of the president. I can go on and on with my analytics. So isn't this easy to predict?
Well, it might appear easy to predict, but all of this is rooted in the lack of ideological politics in Nigeria. The political elites do not, they are not running for elections because they believe in any ideology. They believe in, winning elections so that they can elevate the quality of life of Nigerians. For me, basically, I think that politicians in Nigeria just want to run elections to benefit themselves and maybe their cronies and acolytes. I have not seen that percolated down significantly. But specifically to Anambra State, if you day before yesterday, the governor endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is in a different party, the ruling All Progressives Congress. He is in ABGA, and that is what is happening across states in the country, where the opposition is even endorsing the president rather than trying to strengthen their party and feed candidates to challenge the ruling party. So with that, it becomes a bit predictable that the APC will have a feed day. In those states, Monday Okpebholo, the governor of the state, is in the APC, is in the ruling party, but the candidate that lost, the PDP candidate that lost to him, I saw him campaign sometimes last week and was telling Edo people to reclaim their mandate by, voting for the senatorial candidate of the PDP.
Yes, my apologies because of time, and so that we also avoid mentioning parties because against the rule of elections. But because of time as well, we need to race. Let's look at the New Telegraph. New Telegraph. I think we've already explored the issue around what Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala said. Let's get to the very top, above the nameplate. GDP combined fiscal balance of states up 3% to 7.1 trillion naira. Combined fiscal balance of states up 3% to 7.1 trillion naira. So I think the writer there says targeted vulnerable Nigerians being rich, economy on positive trajectory. What do you make of this? Because when we look at numbers and numbers and numbers, in terms of revenue, we can see that there's increased revenue across the state. I'm just looking at this broadly beyond what the headline says. But impact-based spending is what is always the issue, because the president has even told the governors, now you have more money. What are the grassroots? For him, because he feels that if money was your excuse, at least in Naira terms, I've done my bit to at least increase your number. We're doing record high numbers in terms of Naira terms. But what are these governors, these subnational leaders, spending the money on?
I think that is where the debate should be. The agenda-setting function of the media has to focus on the subnational. For some time, the pressure has been on the federal government, but the president himself is also deflecting the pressure to the states. Yes, I do know that some states are doing very well with the funds that they are getting from the federation account. Enugu State, the Nigerian Guild of Editors had this conference in Enugu State recently, and you do not, this is not about politics, it's about really what you see on the ground. You could see clear performance. You could see clear deliverables, whether in terms of road infrastructure, security, where the governor there has built a security surveillance center, in the education sector and health sector. Some of the states are doing very well. In Delta State, for the very first time, you see Julius Berger, which is one of the giants in the construction industry, building roads that could last for 50 to 100 years to come, and people are celebrating. Also in the health and the education sector, the governors there is doing very well. In Kaduna State, if you go in there, you see the governor also doing very, very well. So across the country, you could pick some governors that are showing evidence of what they're doing with their money. But some others are basically not doing anything. And so that is where the concern is. And the president is sounding the alarm there. And I think that more Nigerians in those states, you know, wherever you are, you should begin to hold your governor, your state governor accountable, including even the senators who they themselves are also executing projects through constituency allowances, constituency funds that are given to them. So it is time to begin to focus on our communities and the local environment and the kind of resources that comes in and what they are used for. That's where the focus should not be.
Well, thank you so much for bringing your perspective to the big conversations as far as the headlines are concerned. Mr. Ego Akeraga is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, joining us from our Abuja studio. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will get to that conversation around what played out in an area called Eneka in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where we saw children being whipped, being flogged, and when investigations were done, well, they said it's a spiritual exercise. Well, the police has actually arrested the pastor who said he was led by the Spirit to do so. Anyway, the twist to that conversation is the fact that when he was arrested and news filtered on, the parents of those children showed up at the police station to say, he has our consent. So he didn't commit any crime. So what will the state do in that kind of situation? We'll get to talk with NAPTIP in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so we start off our first conversation drawing from the videos that went viral in the last 48 hours of a man seen flogging some children, and what appears to be a very disturbing graphic image. And one began to wonder what exactly was happening. Some people couldn't even watch the video because of how traumatizing it was. And details have come through that the police have arrested some actors involved in that. The pastor specifically spoke to the press yesterday, and he said he did what he did because he was led by the Spirit. And curiously, parents of those children have supported their cleric. So let's have this conversation and draw more from what may be happening. And joining us on this segment is Mrs. Nwamaka Ikediashi. She's the Assistant Director of NAPTIP River State Command. Good morning, Mrs. Ikediashi. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. By the way, I hope I got your name correctly. Pardon me if I did not.
Yeah. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Yes, we know that NAPTIP has put out a statement yesterday saying that investigations have commenced into what exactly happened. But from your engagement with the police following the report, what do we know about this? Because we understand that it's a church. What do we know about this church? What do we know about their doctrinal disposition? What do we know about this individual, this pastor that said was conducting some form of exorcism?
Good morning once again. Like the police said, the matter is still under investigation, and we're working together with the Nigerian police to know the outcome of the investigation. Just like we also saw viral video online, persons forwarded to me and forwarded to the agency and to the Nigerian police too. So which made all hands to be on deck. And fortunately, the pastors were arrested. So investigation is still ongoing, but from what we are seeing, they are saying that they were conducting a prayer session based on the direction of the Holy Spirit, protection of the children to ward away death, sickness, and all sorts of things. So for now, that is the information we have. And we are hoping that further information still come from. Thank you.
What about the children? What state are they in currently, mentally and emotionally?
Definitely, they are actually emotionally and mentally abused, and also psychologically abused. It's obvious, you know. But the children are not currently under custody; they are still under the custody of the police. I'm hoping that hopefully that maybe they will hand over to us to do profiling and counseling of the victims. You know, but what we saw yesterday, and the children, they were singing and dancing. But you have to know that one thing about this case, this issue of the abuse is that sometimes the victim does not even understand that he or she is being abused. But, when you take a closer look at the children, you know that what we saw yesterday, they're just only following the directive of their parents. So when you do a proper counseling, I'm sure you will discover that the children were mentally, psychologically, and emotionally abused. Thank you very much.
All right, that's for the purpose of clarity, especially the technical end. I don't know what device you're using. If you're using an earpiece, maybe you remove it and talk directly to your phone so that we can hear you, because the audio is a bit distorted. So we'll get the richness of the conversation. If you could do that for us and just speak directly to the microphone of your device, whatever device you're using, rather than using earpiece. But depending when we get her back to be able to give us, so that's the agency of government that, you know, looks at things like this. So this is a picture, or the video rather, of the members of that particular religious organization coming to the police station in solidarity with their spiritual leader, their pastor, insisting on the fact that this was done by their own, you know, they agreed. They had the pastor had their consent for this, whether it's exorcism, deliverance, I don't know what it is that is called. So this is minors, literally children. I think I saw children as young as maybe less than 10, maybe 12, and all of that being quote-unquote delivered from whatever it is that the spiritual exercise is all about. Well, the state is not comfortable with those kind of practice, because for the state, in the eyes of the Lord, that is clear abuse of the children. So the police is still investigating. They've taken the pastor in, and then the members of the church are here. They were there at the police station in Port Harcourt to see their pastor and support him, telling the police, no, you shouldn't do anything to him. We approved it. But let's get back to our guest. If you can hear me now a bit clearly. When NAPTIP sees this kind of scenario, how do you usually approach it?
Yeah, thank you very much once again. Because if I heard you correctly, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but we're still getting that distortion in your audio quality. But just go ahead, let's see how we can manage and see how much we can take. Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead, madam.
You mentioned about the issue of consent being given by their parents to the pastors to conduct such prayers.
Apparently, the network, Bukola, is not very friendly. It's not very friendly
for this
today.
Conversation. Let's hope that that will be corrected. But in the meantime, the name of the pastor is Ife Diora Joseph, and the church is Our Lord Victory Covenant Mission Church in Eneka. And they allegedly organized a 3-day program for children, claiming it was spiritual cleansing inspired by the Holy Spirit. And we also heard from one of the parents who provided an explanation as to what was being done. Let's have more insight into what happened at the Rivers Police Command yesterday, and we'll return to the conversation.
For 3 days now.
This amateur video, uploaded to social media, appears to show a pastor whipping a group of unclad children in what appears to be a religious ritual somewhere in the Eneka area of Port Harcourt. The video led to the arrest of a pastor of the church and other members on allegations of child abuse by the DPO of Eneka Police Division. The story gets bizarre as parents of the children storm the police station to show solidarity with their pastor. They sing and dance right there at the station. The police PRO arrives to address the press, confirming the arrest of the pastor and other church officials.
Preliminary investigation revealed that the pastor said he has a 3-day program for the church, and he was led by the Holy Spirit to conduct this program.
The pastor, however, says he was acting on the spiritual realm with the full consent of the parents to carry out spiritual purification of the children. His submission was buttressed by the parents.
We never demonized them, we never subject them to violence. What we did was the directive from Almighty God, according to our faith.
My daughter is among the children that was purified. And the message was that death was in the air, that they should please purify the children. They did that, the purification, with pigeon, water, and palm fronds.
In spite of the position of the parents, the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, says it will go ahead with its investigations.
One of our major mandates is looking at child abuse, and when we look at the situation, we felt that the children, even though in human trafficking we look at it and age is immaterial in human trafficking. So the children, when we look at it, is that they are seriously abused.
It's not yet clear what the police will do, but the Commissioner of Police says the case is being treated as that of child abuse, and further actions will become clearer in the coming days. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. So there you have it. Even one of the parents speaking to what happened in that viral video, saying that, they have they're in support of their pastor. What was happening was that a message had come through that death was lurking in the air, and what was being used, to deliver the children was palm fruits and Jeffrey, if I got it correctly, pigeon water or so. But we also saw in that viral video what happened to be red liquid in a basin on the floor. One can't tell immediately if that was also being used for the exorcism, but some have called this a product of ignorance and perhaps poverty, because how do you approach messages with that kind of abuse meted out on children? And there's another aspect of this that is being explored to suggest that, it's a product of religious culture when you consider practices that are performed in certain types of, religious outfits. Now, we should stay in safety zone and not mention specific churches, but how do we then, approach this matter from that standpoint to educate people about, protecting their rights, protecting their loved ones, and not approaching spiritual issues from that particular standpoint? That is part of the conversation. But this bothers more also, Jeffrey, on the fundamental human rights of those children. And it will be important to, know how this agency of government is going to approach this within the eyes of the law. I believe Mrs. Ikedia, she is back with us now. We hope that the audio is better now. Earlier on, Jeffrey asked how NAPTIP usually approaches this, and you were about to begin to provide insight to us on that particular one. Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh dear. Let's try this again. Madam, go ahead with the points that you were making. How does NAPTIP usually approach such cases when it comes to your attention? Hello, Mrs. Ikediashi, can you hear me? All right, we'll try to fix that about Jeffrey. I believe River State, alongside a handful of the 36 states of the Federation, they're also signatories to the Child Rights Act.
Yes,
and
I believe that.
Although the Child Rights Act does not particularly prohibit corporal punishment, but this is not a case of corporal punishment. This is not an academic institution. This is a church, and the circumstances, under which the children were abused beggars belief. So I'm wondering, and I was hoping that we could get this through, what sort of punishment will go to those who have been found wanting in this area. And it seems as if, no, it doesn't seem. What we have is that the parents are also accomplices. Is there some form of culpability on the part of the parents as well?
That makes it quite tricky. Because on a good day, the parents are supposed to be witnesses to this abuse. Now, when they say they have their consent, so it's now the state to say, this is how the state protects the law. When I say state now, I'm talking about Nigeria or the subnational. There is a process. If you subject a child under any guise to any form of what the state considers inhumane, abuse, well, the state is not going to listen to that because the law is the law. So it's now the delicate balance between spiritual practices and what the state holds as what constitutes criminal liability in that sense. That is going to be the debate between the police and this pastor in court. For the record, I am sure, except otherwise, this case is going to get to court because the number of minors, Bukola, there are a lot of them. So apparently this was caught on camera. Perhaps this has been a practice within that sector or that group or that religious organization for as long as that organization has lasted. And I'm very sure that there are other places where worse things are done where we may not even know. So this is a call to religious organization or any form of entity as to how you manage and deal with children. These are not adults. That would have been a different kettle of fish. These are children. Every child is the property of the government. Let me repeat that. Every child is a property of the government. The government has a right to protect every child. That is why if you mistreat your child, and in the eyes of the government, that child is not properly taken, they will take that child from you because the law believes that parents can be recalcitrant, parents can lose their mind. The law makes some assumption and decided to leave the protection of children in the hands of the government. That's why children can be taken away from their parents. Else, is my child, is your child, why should the government be involved? But because tendencies like this happen, that's why it is. So because I believe that when they get to court, the state will say what they know to be abuse. And that video, if it shows evidence of abuse, that pastor will go in for it. So this is a clear case of everybody mind yourself in the way you practice your religion, especially when it has to do with children. Because all that God told you, the deity told you, that grammar is not going to work in court, even if you have the consent of the parents.
And some of these videos abound online, maybe not necessarily in the same circumstances. We've seen videos where certain pastors, some of them in fact quite popular for their approaches, to ministration, quote unquote, and we see deliverance being carried out in the best description, a most violent manner that in fact is an abuse on your own mind, you being the consumer of that particular content online as well. So when we talk about ignorance, it's on a larger scale, and we find people, who are consumers or who are patrons, or if you like, adherents or congregants of that particular aspect of type of ministration. So for those who may also be carrying out this, let's put it out there, because why we are able to get with immediacy such content is because of the age of the internet, social media, where everyone has a power to disseminate information. a lot of these things have been going on in the society for a very long time. And so the implications are quite dire. We're hoping that the NAPTIP spokesperson will come through, for what the punishment would be. But an overview here says that the Child's Right Act in Nigeria, specifically Section 11, prohibits subjecting a child to physical, mental, or emotional injury, abuse, neglect, or maltreatment, including sexual abuse. And in some other instances, the exorcism is being carried out with the intention to deliver children from witchcraft. So these are the bizarre things that we hear, about the performance of deliverance or exorcism in religious institutions. And many more people, should get educated and set themselves free from such processes. Parents should also take responsibility for protecting their children from these forms of activities. And we might also say, Jeffrey, that it's important, I don't know the extent of the investigations of the River State Police Command, to protect the whistleblowers as well, because apparently, the members of the church are in full support of the actions carried out by their pastor. And so this also goes to what may be happening in the community. They may not particularly be happy with, the whistleblowers who have put this through to the public, such that those children can be protected henceforth. So the whistleblowers must be protected as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, because the angle of that camera can be detected as to where that shot came from. And you can see that they were very careful in their filming to make sure that they capture as much as possible. So we must thank the whistleblower for, the person who brought this to the attention of the police and the public, by extension, thanking the person for doing this job. Else these children will just continue to be subjected to whatever practice they've been practicing. But let's begin to wrap up this conversation and see whether we can get 2 or 3 takes on the NAPTIP Assistant Director. Madam, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Oh, I just feel a sigh of relief.
Thank you. I have to change the device.
Fantastic. Please keep using this particular device. Thank you. That's on the lighter side. We were saying that when NAPTIP sees things like this, because my colleague and I were just juxtaposing what the law says, what religious practices say, the fine line between religion and the state, and intervention in cases like this, where do we draw the line, and all of that. So when NAPTIP sees things like this, how do you usually approach it?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, this is a case of child abuse. It's a clear case of child abuse. And the tricky thing in this particular situation is that they are saying that the parents consented to the pastor conducting the prayers. And when you come to cases of abuse, especially when a child is involved, that's a minor, you find out the rule is that, and the law is that, consent is immaterial. And I also like to state that their parents too are actually victims, yes, because they don't understand the implication of what actually is going on. Because if they actually have a good understanding, they wouldn't allow their children to be subjected to such inhuman treatment and torture. So NAPTIP on our own part, like I said, a lot of our sections under the CPR law deals with persons under the age of 18 years, and we have cases, we have sections that also deals with cases of child abuse. So consent is completely immaterial when it comes to this. An offense has been committed, and it's an offense of child abuse against the children. And when you take a very close look at those video clips, you find out that those children were subjected to very degrading treatment. They were being treated as if they are like slaves. In fact, when I looked at that video, it reminded me of the movies I watch when you see people in the 14th, 15th century, when the slave trade is going on, how they are being treated before they are shipped to Europe. You see the children's naked, stark naked, and they are holding palm fronds. So it's an offense. An offense has been committed. And when you take a very close look at the section 25A of the TPR law, it states that any person that harbors, receives, any person and subject such a person to slave-like treatment or conditions commits an offense under the Act. Even when we also take a look at the Constitution, which is our ground norm, Section 34 of the Constitution also further states about right to dignity of a person. The summary of that particular section says that nobody should be subjected to degrading treatment, and it prohibits any form of slavery-like treatment. So what actually are we talking about? So we from NAPTIP look at it from the perspective that an offense has been committed against those children. And as a matter of fact, under our standard operational procedure, those parents are even supposed to be cancelled. Yes, they are supposed to be cancelled to be made to understand the implication of what actually is going on. Because from the information we gathered, we discovered that prayer is being conducted periodically. And one of the negative effects of still conducting such prayers, somebody could die. If you take a very close look at that video clip, you will see how the babies are being thrown to the second party to catch. Yes. So what if peradventure in the process of throwing that baby, the baby falls and dies, or an injury is being caused on the child? What do we say? How will the parents take it? So we from NAPTIP, under our TPR law, an offense has actually been committed. There is no hard and fast rule about it. The only thing is that their parents are supposed to be made to understand they are secondary victims too, while the children are the primary victims. So it's quite that's the tricky thing about it. It's supposed to take a while because you need to counsel them. You need to make them to understand that an offense has been committed. And for the pastors that were performing such a horrific act, the truth of it is that at least some punishments should be meted on them, so that they will understand that we are not against prayers, we are not against religion. It's your right to go to any form of practice, any form of religion you want to practice in Nigeria. But when you are practicing such religion, you should be mindful of people's rights. So this is our take from NAPTIP. Thank you very much.
Wow, and one of the parents was saying in that video that, the reason for that was because a message came through that death was lurking. So we might ask, was death lurking for the number of children that we saw in that video? But you say that the parents were victims. Aren't they culpable, under the eyes of the law, particularly the Child Rights Act, because they happen to be in full support and they have made their children available for the exorcism? And besides that, what jail term are we looking at if the actors here have been found guilty, particularly the pastor?
Well, if you look at the TPR law, like that's where I'm quoting from, and which is where I rely on when we are doing such matters, says not less than 5 years imprisonment. That is the least, and also a fine of about 1 million naira. So, hello.
Go ahead,
because
madam.
Because this particular scenario, because that particular section says any person, but now the most disheartening part of this is that these are children. They are minors. When you take a very close look at that picture or that video, you see that the elders in that video should be like 12 years old. Yes, kneeling down, holding palm fronts, naked. That is very degrading. In fact, and there is no person that sees this video that will not raise concern. A lot of people, in fact, over half of my contacts from my phone forwarded this video to me. So which means people were not happy about it. It's not just like the normal social media news we see every day. This is disheartening. So looking at that, it's not a good one at all. It's a total case of child abuse. And like I said, it's quite unfortunate. Their parents are also victims, and they're supposed to be made to understand the implication of this whole thing. And that can only be made possible via counseling. That is the truth of it. Thank you very much.
Indeed, we must anchor at this point, and thank you very much. We hope that you'll be providing us with more information as your investigations progress and reveal more. We've been talking with Nwamaka Ikediashi, the Assistant Director for the National Association for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, River State Command, who has joined us virtually for this conversation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, and do have a lovely day and week. Thank you very much. Bye.
There is more as far as protecting the children, the wards. This time, bordering more on the youths, but that will be after this break. Join us again.
So if you're a parent or a guardian, this conversation is absolutely important for you. The reason is simple. My producer will put up that video where we now see a surging practice, not just at tertiary level, but even at the secondary school level, this practice of signing out of university or secondary school when they finished their coursework and they finally graduated. We see display of wealth, of money. And some even do it in dollars. How did we get here? Now, this is just one of many. You see children or young people driving in with exotic cars, showing off their girlfriend, giving them bouquets, spraying money, putting other persons who may not have such privileges under pressure. There's a reason why secondary school insists on wearing uniform. But on that particular day, everything goes off the radar. So this is very concerning because you expect that they have graduated, they haven't gotten so many experiences in life. Okay, some may do one or two businesses, but why is this allowed? We see this happening even on campus. So we want to have more like a triangular conversation across board, involving policymakers, involving the institution, involving parents, involving people that do what we call family life practices. And we have a panel to have this conversation because it's a very disturbing trend. I'm sure you would have seen it in different schools, public schools, private schools, where young people come with big cars, cars that some of us are dreaming to drive. They are already driving it and spraying God knows how much on girls or themselves. So it's very concerning. Joining us is Ronke Posh. She's a family life practitioner. She joins us virtually right here in Lagos. Thank you for coming on the program. We also have joining us Oludolakpo Adewale. She's a parent. She's right here in our Lagos studio. And we also have Professor Chima Nwokocha, is the Dean, Student Affairs, University of Port Harcourt. We understand the Prof will be catching up with us in just a moment. Let me start with you, Mrs. Adewale, before I get to Madam Posh. What's your impression when you see, as a parent, speaking as a parent now, when you see what we just described? This is just one of many videos that we could just get out to at least represent the conversation. What do you make of it?
For me, disheartening is the word. When I saw the video, a couple of emotions welled up in me. First, sadness, anger, and, will I say, disgust, and maybe concern as well, because I was like, how did we get here? Flashback to like 24 years ago when I graduated from secondary school or passed out of secondary school, the norm in my secondary school then was that everyone should put on their uniforms at their passing out parade or passing out event. But I think how we got here is a matter of we want to show, we want to express ourselves. Parents want to express themselves through the children, and it's quite very, very, very dangerous. What I would say is we are looking at 5 steps ahead. We want to get ahead of ourselves, and that is a big problem. When I see parents who couldn't afford a particular thing when they were growing up, and then they look at their children and feel like they can express themselves through their children, that is one category where parents say, oh, the cars I couldn't drive during my time, my child, when I have the opportunity, my child is going to take that to prom. And talking about prom, when did we start getting that culture of prom? I'm not saying that the way it was 20 years ago, we should still be doing passing out parade the same way. But I think that when we are adding creativity to things, we should be modest about it. We should know when to draw the line. Children are seeing things on social media. Just yesterday, I was seeing something online where a parent was asking someone online, saying, can my child join your group? And the group is questionable by all standards. And the man was responding to say, just by your choice. The parent is aiding and abetting that kind of behavior because the parent wants a better life, in quote, for the child, not in legitimate ways. So I think parents, we need to soft pedal on trying to express ourselves through our children.
So let's get to Madam Posh. What materialism at its finest? Prom. So materialism at its finest we see being expressed. Sadly, prom. She's even mentioned the issue of prom. We're even talking about passing out parade. She's mentioned prom now, where these students come in with exotic cars, dressed in the finest of dresses and suits and all of that. Should we be alarmed, or this is just young people expressing themselves?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I don't think we should be alarmed. We've allowed this to happen. And I understand from the lady talking about parents. But we must understand that these displays, these spectacles, these embarrassing shows are happening in schools. The schools have lost purpose. Many schools have lost purpose. And if the purpose of something is unknown, abuse is inevitable. If the river does not know its source, it will soon dry up. And that is exactly what is happening. We have left our roots and our culture. Today, we cannot brag of an African curriculum. We cannot even brag of anything Nigerian. Our Nigerian curriculum, we don't take pride in it. Many schools don't, they don't use it. So I'm going back to the roots. We don't know what we are doing, so we import anything that we see, and then we do it times 10. The schools have become a place that have allowed any kind of thing to happen because there is a bankruptcy and a poverty of the mind happening in many schools. So they will pander to what the parents want, and they forget that a school is an educational institution. Many of those children doing all those parades have not even done well. They don't have good grades. Some of them have not even seen their results. And these sort of things are happening. Yes, I'm a family life therapist, but I also run a school in Ikoyi. So I'm also a parent whose child was the prom queen in 2023. So I kind of know I'm sitting in different angles and I understand what exactly is going on. But I want to talk about it from the perspective of culture. We don't practice our culture. We import cultures. We don't know what we are doing. When I graduated in 1996, we wore white for our graduation. That's what we used to do. And as the lady said, yes, we don't have to do it exactly the same way, but we don't have to now allow it to be a place where parents come to show off. And self-esteem and ego, you can see low self-esteem, inferiority complex, and all sorts are happening there. Things that are not relevant. Why don't they look after the community and do all those sort of things? You see all sorts of shows. If you want a show, you go to a club, you go to a theater. You don't come to a school. The schools don't have values anymore. If you have values, then you will say, not under my watch. We don't do that here. Schools are not able to tell parents anything anymore. I saw another one where the parents were the ones that were actually doing the fashion parade. Schools have become content creators, event planners. That's what they're doing. And they live for the moment where they are going to trend on social media as opposed to the products. So they have flowers, but they don't have fruits. And it's very sad. So a lot of the blame is by the people running these schools that have lost the vision and the mission of their schools and are pandering all around and causing this sort of embarrassing displays, setting these children up, sexualizing them. You see children dressed anyhow, even like clubbers. I saw them carrying placards, wearing miniskirts in one school, and all sorts of things happening. We need to blame those schools. Those schools have gotten it so wrong. We are Africans. We need to go back to our roots. Let us behave like Africans.
I'd like to approach from the perspective of the youth, at the risk of trying to understand what may perhaps be going on in their minds. The prom culture, definitely it's not a Nigerian culture, it's an exportation. So perhaps maybe the youths are looking at it from the perspective of it is an expression of the age of their own generation, and there is a generational disconnect between perhaps the millennials and the baby boomers and their own generation. I'd like you to speak to what may be going on in the minds of the youth before we now begin to explore, you know, whether or not parents have dropped their ball. Let's explore the minds of the youths. Okay, I'll bring that first to Mrs. Adewale, and then I'll come back to you.
Great question there, because you're speaking from the minds of Generation Z. And even if we're looking at babies we're giving birth to, Generation Alpha, and even this year from Generation Beta, they think differently. They are miles ahead, definitely. But at the same time, I think the role of parents, the role of educators is to guide. We all have the tendency to do things extra. But one thing that should always be our guide is that there's a break in transmission. Fine, we know that we want to express ourselves, youth want to express themselves. Prom culture should still be done with modesty and decency in mind. That is my point of view. When you want to do a particular thing, you look at a culture, you put it on the table, and you say, can I get this thing? Can I take the pros of this thing and not the cons of it? That is my point of view. Look at some of the videos that we've seen. We see people who are spraying dollars, foreign currency. Now, it boils down to the question of where did they get that kind of money? And when you go online, you see people spraying those kind of money online, adults. I always say this, let kids be kids. Let's dress appropriately according to our age. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in secondary school, I wasn't this kind of too expressive girl, but I wanted to do things my mates were doing. And then one of the days, one of my mates brought nail polish to class. And then I used the nail polish. Guess what? I forgot to clean it off, and I took it home. My mom saw it, and you know, when you're about to do something and your parents will see it. And my mom saw it, and she was like, she disciplined me for it, for using that nail polish. But guess what? After the discipline, she told me there is time for everything. That stuck with me. I use nail polish, but I don't even use it regularly now because I don't even have the time to do it, except when I want to, you know, because of my line of work. It just boils down to the fact that there is time for everything. Let kids be kids, and when they grow up, they will have enough time to express themselves.
So, Mrs. Posh, is there a way the prom culture can be sustained such that the children can still express themselves, but without this sexualization as we see in those videos where, you know, there's a boy and a girl, and we obviously understand what is in that mix for teenagers. So is there a way that this culture can be sustained, but it will be a leveler as well, and it can also be, you know, productive positively?
Absolutely. That's why there are guidelines. You see, there are trends, and these things, they change over. These things evolve. All these trends, they will change. And you talk about the mind of the Gen Z. I have Gen Z child, so I kind of like speak to a lot of the children. For them, it's TikTok likes. That's all that it is. Those children have to be rooted in values. You see, when this decadence happens and we see all these displays, it didn't happen 2 months before that day. It happened from the roots, from preschool, from primary, from when the children started secondary school, when we begin to tolerate all sorts of things, because there's going to be a planning process for all of this. There are going to be rules and guidelines. Okay, on prom day, you're not supposed to come with an aeroplane or a submarine or whatever the case may be. You need to have put the guidelines in place. What about, let us do something for the community? And then you say the graduates from this school are the ones that actually did a borehole for this place. How about putting colors in place? If you don't, you see, if something is not managed, it is subject to abuse. And that is what we are seeing now. A lot of abuse is happening. You see, children are easily content. if you go to Saudi Arabia, if you go to certain countries, there are certain things you cannot do because they will not tolerate it. But as Africans, as Nigerians, we see that we don't have any guideline. We don't do anything. We don't stick to our culture. So everything and anything is now acceptable. And that's why we are seeing all these sort of things. And it's so unfortunate. It is terribly unfortunate that schools that you have core values and stick by it, not just write it on a wall or print it on a website. You should actually ensure that you have core values, that there's modesty, there's resilience, that you are celebrating hard work. These are the things that we should be teaching the children. By the time my daughter graduated and she was head girl in her school, she was prom queen, and she, even abroad, she was also head girl in her, as well when she did her A-levels. All these things, she had written a book. She had been on presidential with Fela Durotoye on his boot camp. She had done many things because we must ensure that we are building these children for life, not a display or a spectacle that we are seeing, just 1 or 2 days trends. If we don't guide these children, these are the results that we are going to continue to get. We don't know what we are doing as educators, and that is the sad truth.
What should be the action, Ms. Adewale? Action has to be taken like yesterday. That is why we hope that Prof can join us. We wanted somebody from the academia to be on this table because at least that's at the tertiary level where these things happen. We know that every school, whether it's primary, secondary, tertiary, is a combination of haves and have-nots. So there is, of course, that social strata disparity. But schools have a way of ensuring that everybody is on the same level because this is actually a training ground, not a business entity in that sense. But now, they've been doing this prom, this signing out, it's become some sort of a new culture for Gen Z. How do we step back?
Okay.
Enforcement now.
I'm all for creativity, but I would say maybe we should step back and go back to the analog days in the sense that everyone should put on their uniforms at proms or at partner parade. In my secondary school, Queen's School, Ibadan, that was how we did. All we did was that our uniforms were just spot on that day. That's on the side. I think the second thing would be that we should continue to emphasize hard work. There is no shortcut to success. There's a song that comes to my mind right now, and it's by Gates Baba, Little Drops. I mean, yes, little follow, that's the title of the song. We just want to follow the trend without really understanding it. And I think one thing that will also help us as adults is whatever we want to post, these young people have access to internet. Whatever we want to post, let it pass through a 5-way test. Is it good to post? Am I going to affect lives if I'm posting it? If a young person sees this content, will the young person be able to watch? Right now, you have kids. My young child will take your device, and I'll try to be putting things in place on my device, not to make him see things that are not appropriate to his age. So I think when we want to post, you should take a step back to say, is this thing appropriate for a child? Can a child see this and be okay with it? So as adults, we can put that process in place to make sure that whatever we post is not going to be detrimental for the child. The child, you had a conversation earlier and you talked about child abuse. The child is the property of the government. We should protect the child at every instance that we have. That's why I get sad, even in our estate, when I see parents putting the child in front of a vehicle. It's not appropriate. Children should be seated at the back. A child should not be seated in the front. Even parents driving and putting a child in front, I get sad, I cringe. Sometimes I go to meet the parents to say, please, permit me to just say one thing. Your child shouldn't be sitting here. It's child safety. A child's safety should come first, whether a child is a kid or a teenager.
Very quickly now, let's talk about where, parents and the academic authorities may have dropped the ball. Madam Posh, I know that you've received a lot of these videos. Perhaps you've even interacted with some school authorities. Why do they allow this to go on and these videos abound online?
Sorry, I didn't catch your question. Why did the schools allow it to go on?
Did the schools allow it to go on? Let's speak to the schools now and parents. And these videos are online.
The schools allowed it to go on because they've lost their purpose. They don't know what they stand for anymore. They don't understand that they're educational institutions. Like I said at the top of the meeting, that schools have become event planners. They have become TikTok influencers now. They all just want to produce content that will trend for a couple of days, just like the teens want to do. And you see that even parents are getting involved in this sort of things. You see ego on display, you see low self-esteem on display, where people are competing amongst themselves. There's toxicity all around. Now, the environment is what has allowed it to thrive. If the school says we do not do that here, then it will not continue. So schools have to go back to the reason. They have to go back to the reason why they were set up in the first place. And what is it that you want to generate at the end of it? What are you celebrating? Your children, the pupils and the children and the students, they should be celebrating their achievements, not necessarily wearing clothes and cars and stuff like that, things that they cannot even afford. So you're setting a lot of these children up. Okay, I've heard people say, oh, a lot of them are going abroad. They don't behave like this abroad. They can't even afford, many of them can't afford things like this abroad. I lived in the UK for 2 decades, so I'm not speaking from an ignorant perspective. They don't operate like this in many countries. I find that a lot of this display of madness happen in certain places in America or maybe in Africa. Mostly I see in Africa happening like this. And that's because we are not going back to our roots. We don't know what we represent. We don't know what we stand for. And if the purpose of something is unknown, it is said that abuse is inevitable. And that is why we see it. So shame on all those kind of schools that are tolerating this sort of things. I'm an educator. I'm in the educational sector, but I feel embarrassed because of what we have allowed to enter and creep into our society today.
Well, thank you both. Well said. Ronke Posh, family life practitioner, joining us virtually. Olu Dolakbo Adewale, a parent who joined us right here in Lagos City. Ladies, I almost said gentlemen, forgive me.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you so much, and we'll continue to shine the light on these things. And it's not the end of the conversation. We're going to get the policymakers and the institutions themselves to come have a sit down so that we can also hear from them. Perhaps bring in the young people themselves. Somebody who has been king or queen of prom, and let's also see how we can explore this, because we need to hear all sides. It's a practice we do here at Channels Television so that we understand where everybody's coming from, so we can help us secure our society. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we want to talk about security in the Southeast region. Amnesty International published a report saying that between 2021 or so and 2023, in a space of about 2 years, 1,800 plus persons have been killed by state and non-state actors. And this has generated a lot of commentary and concern. And I know when it has to do with the Southeast, a lot of talk comes out of this. We're going to be joined by an official of the Amnesty International right here on the station in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back, and again, thank you for staying with us. And we're talking about security now. Amnesty International, of course, has released a report documenting the nature and pattern of killings in Southeast Nigeria. And the report is titled, A Decade of Impunity, Attacks and Unlawful Killings in Southeast Nigeria. Let's dive deep into this report now. And the country director for Amnesty International Nigeria joins us, Mr. Issa Sanusi. He's with us from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Sanusi, on the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Okay, so looking at the report now, in the portion titled The Summary of Findings, your organization says between January 2021 and June 2023, over 1,844 people were killed in the Southeast region, while there were cases of abductions, mob violence, and electoral violence. As at the time of writing this report, the killings continued. And you go on to say that It's a hybrid of criminal and political violence. So I'd like you to unbundle this for us. Out of the 1,844 persons that were killed, separating the wheat from the chaff, which can you attribute to be, what number can you attribute to be criminal and then the others political?
Well, majority of the killings were carried out by the non-state actors, and we also have recorded many cases of extrajudicial execution and other serious human rights violations by the state actors. So what we have, as you mentioned, is a hybrid of political violence, criminality, and all sorts of things. Like when we did our investigation, we realized that there are at least 17 forests in Anambra State where gunmen operate from. And in Imo State, there are at least 15 of those kind of forests from which gunmen operate. And these government have made life very, very difficult and horrible for the people of this region. In some places, we found out that even families, when you want to have burials, you have to pay them between 500,000 to 300,000. And many people who could not dare do that have to bury their dear ones somewhere else. So life has become very horrible, and this crisis has been going on since at least 2016. And the reason why we did this research is to bring attention to these horrific human rights violations and the need for all those involved, both state and non-state actors. We are telling them to stop, and they have to cease these violations, and peace has to be restored. And all those who have been found to have violated human rights, they must be brought to justice. And families of those who are affected deserve reparation, adequate compensation, and all kind of support for them to recover their lives.
So I'm looking at part of the reports of Amnesty International, one of the summaries, which I would like you to provide insights. So he said, the multifaceted nature of the actors in the Southeast violence makes it easy for state and non-state actors to reduce the actors to a singular narrative, an IPOB ESN secessionist group. What do you make of that?
Well, what we are saying is that there is a popular, very wrong narrative around that whenever you heard about attacks or killings or arson in Southeast, it has been completely reduced and narrowed to a very wrong, not entirely, but very narrow narrative of saying that IPOB ESN. But the issue is beyond that. We believe that focus, or that wrong focus, and narrowing down everything to ESN and IPOB has completely deprived the authorities of the opportunity to holistically look at the problem and solve it. Beyond the issue of IPOB and ESN, there are so many other issues. Drugs, there are issues of cult groups, there are issues of political violence, all this, and criminality, whereby because gunmen believe that whenever they strike, the blame is shifted to IPOB, therefore they continue to do their activities. And we believe that has made it very difficult for the government to address the problem, and it has narrowed down the problem to the wrong focus. That is why we said this crisis is hybrid. It has so many faces, it has so many dimensions, and all dimensions have to be looked at and thoroughly examined so that people will live in peace. Many people don't go to the Southeast anymore to bury their dear ones. Many people don't go at Christmas. Many people don't go on holidays to visit their families. They have to move their families somewhere safer, either Lagos or Abuja, and then they meet their families. And this is unfortunate, and it is affecting people's right and dignity of life itself. And that is why we said that the problem has to be examined. The narrative has to move realistically beyond narrowing it down to IPOB and ESL.
And your report indicts the police, the military, and Ibubuagu in the southeast of much of these killings, to which the Defense Headquarters has been responding. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Kangi, particularly responded. We'd like you to listen to the soundbite, and we'll come back for your reaction.
Like I always tell you, everybody with phone in his hand, mobile phone, Android phone, is a potential source of information to the whole world, not even to us here. As you are sitting down now, you can say information to any part of the world that you want, and you say what you want. Nobody will tell you for that. You have, because there is freedom of whatever you want to do. But we can tell you that the military is not engaged in any extrajudicial killing in the southeast. You will all agree with me that the effort of our troops in the recent 2 months have significantly improved the security situation in our country, as most of the reports we have been hearing and operation being conducted has reduced because the efforts of those criminals have seriously been degraded.
There you have it, the response from the Defense Headquarters. And in fact, if you listened, if we were able to take it further, you'd have heard him say that Amnesty International's position is consistent with your long-standing posture towards the Nigerian military. How do you respond?
Well, I think what the defense spokesperson said is completely wrong, and I believe he hasn't, or they haven't read our report. In the report, we also mentioned cases where military men were executed, their bases attacked, or their barracks attacked. We also mentioned the fact that because of consistent attack on security agencies, which are unlawful as well, they could not be able to do their duties effectively. And we also mentioned cases where soldiers were executed by gunmen. And therefore, it is not about consistency, about condemning the military. What we are doing is doing the honest thing and saying that we have cases. While doing this investigation, we interviewed 100 people. And out of that 100, 95 of them, we interviewed them face-to-face in the southeast region. So we have our evidence, and we believe that the military should take time to read this report and look at cases. In fact, before we even release the report, we also send them letters telling them that we have these allegations. If you have any detail that can help us to understand what is going on or how your operations affect human rights, we will be glad to have them. And we didn't hear from them. Therefore, I don't think that there is any weight or any credibility to the claim that we are consistently against the military. We have nothing against the military, and we always believe that they are doing a constitutional responsibility. But that does not deflect the fact that they have to comply with human rights. And we will not shy away from pointing out whenever human rights are violated, because security is for people to live with dignity. And if it ends up becoming a means through which people are deprived of their personal liberty, we have to say it, and we have to say it bluntly without fear.
We may not... It's not difficult to understand when criminals carry out criminal acts, but let's talk about this part of extrajudicial killing in terms of an explainer here. Well, the DHQ was just given his position. I don't think they put out as many facts as possible, but they dismissed the allegations in clear terms. So when you say there's extrajudicial killing, give us maybe an instance. For example, is it the fact that they catch a criminal and they kill the criminal and without a due process, or innocent people are caught in the crossfire? What exactly is the nature of this extrajudicial killing?
Well, the extrajudicial killings that we have recorded included raids. For example, in places where members of IPOB or ESN are suspected to be located. In the process of those moves to either arrest or carry out security searches, that is where this kind of extrajudicial executions happen. And there are cases where people are picked up from their homes and they are never heard of forever. We have, in the report, we documented cases of at least 4 people who were picked up by security men and nothing has been heard about them as far back as 2021. And let me take you back to 2016. Our work on the situation in Southeast does not start with this report. In 2016, we released a report documenting atrocities committed by the security agencies. And we continue to document these incidents, and if the military and the police and any other agency is interested, we are glad to give them details of families, of people with names and addresses and date of birth who have been extrajudicially executed, not only by the police, not only by the military, but also the Bube Egu, which is a paramilitary outfit set up by some governors to address incessant security crisis in the region. And they ended up becoming a means, as we know, vigilante all over Nigeria do this because they don't care about human rights and they can easily be manipulated to go after enemies of politicians or something like that. So we have our evidence and we are very glad, we are very happy to present those evidences, and we are always in touch with families of victims. And we believe that there is need to do a soul search about these things. Let us come and sit down, look at those cases, and find out who did what and when, and let us make sure that the full weight of law come in to ensure justice for the victims.
I want to read another line in the report. It said there have been cases of military reprisal attacks in several communities in the southeast in relation to the activities of IPOB, ESN, and gunmen, leading to human rights abuses. Perhaps is where the military is responding from. But let's talk about a place in Imo State where we understand there's a place called, I think, Tiger Base. I have personally gotten reports of people saying that place is hell on earth. Literally, like, if you get there, coming out of that place is going to be by the grace of the Almighty God. I think it's called Tiger Base. The first time I heard about it was before the election. I think the Labour Party governorship candidate in that election was the one talking about that particular spot, Tiger Base. So what have you heard about Tiger Base and the alleged atrocities being committed by security agencies at Tiger Base?
Well, Tiger Base is a very horrific and horrendous place where people go in and either come back with a lot of life-threatening injuries. Some end up executed, some end up with wounds that stay with them for the rest of their lives. Let me also say that Tiger Base, the cases we receive about Tiger Base, the complaints of the horrific human rights violations taking place at Tiger Base, had to compel us to do a new report, a standalone report, which we are going to release about Tiger Base. And that is all I will say about that place. But we know about it, and that is why we have even carried out an extensive research on the atrocities taking place in that place. It is just similar to the SARS base in Okuzu, also in Anambra State, where so many young people were executed, so many young people went in and they didn't come out and their families never heard about them. And that is what Tiger Base is gradually becoming. People go in and hardly come out. When they come out either disabled because of torture or other horrific, inhuman treatment. And we believe that the authorities have to investigate that Tiger Base. But as I have said, Amnesty International had already carried out an extensive research. And when it's due, we are going to release a standalone report on the atrocities happening in that place.
Is it the same with Anambra as highlighted in your report? And I'm going to read from it. It says, in several towns in Anambra, including in Obosi, Awka, Onitsha, Ogidi, and Umoji, cult groups operate unchecked amid a thriving drug business, with hundreds killed in cultism-related clashes. What can you tell us about your engagement with the police and media investigations about the atrocities being committed here, and why is there a helplessness in tackling this?
Well, if you read some parts of the report, you see that we have mentioned the fact that places like Obosi and other related places where there are huge killings as a result of cult activities, we have made it very clear. The reason why these things have been going on in those areas and other parts of the South is because almost many, or all the police stations in those areas have been either burned down, the policemen killed, or something like that. So without the police and with their barracks, with their police stations constantly being attacked and their men being killed, that is why those places became what can best be described as wild west, where anything just happened without any deterrence. And that is why these things continue. And that is why we even said that these attacks on security agencies are gross human rights violations and crimes that must stop. And that is why we continue to point out that if these things continue, there will be chaos and the effect is better imagined.
All right, so in winding down, in wrapping up this conversation, Amnesty has always been the conscience trying to check excesses in terms of human rights, and we cannot wait for that report on Tiger Base. And when it comes out, we invite you, also invite the government, because there's this back and forth as to that particular place, the notorious things that go on there as alleged, and people just disappear according to what we hear. But the government will also, the authorities, the police, I guess, will be in a good position to speak. So we are waiting for that Tiger Base report, because we cannot have the Okozo on our hand, no matter the situation, especially if it has to do with human rights. But I'm sure everybody has an explainer. But in winding down, Amnesty International doing their work, when you put out all of these reports and you make a case, but the government doesn't seem to respond, or the people you're trying to address this report to are not bulging or are denying or are literally just, aloof or evasive, what next? What is the next line of action? Is it just talk?
Well, it's not talk. Amnesty International is a global organization. We have over 10 million members across the world. And we are not only in Nigeria, we are in almost 152 countries. And we pull our force, we pull our numbers, we pull our capacity to mobilize and sensitize and influence policy. We use it everywhere. For example, the campaign on the situation in the Southeast is going to take place all over the world. It will continue. We will make sure that the world's attention is brought to it. We will make sure that appropriate authorities have done the right thing. And it is not only about talks. These things are documented. And I don't think that anything that has been documented will end up as a talk. We believe that even if this leadership or current government and the ones to come and the previous ones continue to ignore these things, we believe that one day justice will catch up with all the human rights violators. We are very optimistic, we are very positive, and we are never discouraged by the I don't care attitude of the current leadership in the country and politicians who focus more on election than the lives of the people.
And we await that report. And we must also add at this point, yes, we've heard from the military. Needless to say that there should be more exhausting conversations, but we must also hear from the police on this one, their position as to the implications of your report. We must thank you very much, Mr. Issa Sanusi, is the Amnesty International Country Director for Nigeria. Thank you very much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We're totally out of time, but just before we go, we want to tell you that Dangote Company has actually responded to the concerns over one Miss Ruth Otabo, who we understand was involved in an accident. The truck of Dangote, one of the trucks. The girl right now is in the hospital. One of her legs has been amputated. We understand the second one may be amputated as a result of this. Well, they said, we're ensuring full support for Mrs. Otabo, including comprehensive medical care and appropriate compensation in line with Dangote Group's welfare policy, and wishing her quick recovery. It's a very pathetic story. We understand that girl just graduated 6 days ago from the university. She's a relative to a reality TV star who raised a lamb. Right now, she has one of her legs are gone. We fear that the second leg may be gone as well if care is not taken. So this is Dangote Group responding to that incident. But that's the much we have time for. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Yes, our thoughts are with Mrs. Ruth Otabo and her family at this point in time. Thank you so much for being there through the week. We'll be back again on Monday. And Sunrise Daily is up next. I am Bukola Koka.